The crying child. 22-year-old Emily Carter had recently moved from a small town in Ohio to Phoenix, Arizona, after landing her first corporate job. She had no idea that this move would become the most terrifying chapter of her life. Near her office, she found a small apartment in an old residential complex. The rent was surprisingly cheap for such a prime location. At first, Emily felt lucky. But the people in that apartment complex were strange. Whenever Emily stepped outside, whether to go to work, buy groceries, or just take a walk, the residents would stare at her from head to toe. Their eyes followed her in silence, without expression. Even more disturbing, none of the housemaids in the area were willing to work in her apartment. No one gave a clear reason. They simply refused. Emily felt uncomfortable, but the low rent and proximity to her office made her ignore the warning signs. One night, she was talking on the phone with her best friend Rachel. Suddenly, Rachel asked, "Emily, why can I hear a baby crying?" Emily went silent and listened carefully. There was no sound. "No, there's no baby here," Emily replied. She brushed it off. But as days passed, something unsettling began to happen. Anyone who called Emily late at night, friends, co-workers, even her parents, asked the same question. "Is there a baby crying near you?" Everyone claimed they could hear a small child sobbing through the phone. Emily, however, heard nothing. That's when fear slowly started to creep in. Then came the night that changed everything. Emily was fast asleep when, around 1 a.m., she heard it. A baby crying. Loud. Desperate. Painful. She woke up instantly. The moment she opened her eyes, the crying stopped. Her heart raced. "Who's there?" she shouted. No response. Then suddenly, a soft, eerie laugh echoed through the room. As if someone was mocking her. Terrified, Emily ran out of her bedroom. She thought she saw a shadow moving toward the living room and chased after it. But there was no one there. When she returned to her bedroom, her blood froze. On the mirror were small red handprints. Child-sized. And when she looked closely, she realized. They were made of blood. The next morning, shaken and exhausted, Emily asked the neighbors about the apartment. That's when she learned the truth. Before Emily, an old woman had lived there. No one liked her. People believed she practiced black magic. Ever since she moved into the complex, happiness turned into tragedy. New cars met with fatal accidents. Promotions were followed by sudden, mysterious illnesses. Worst of all, she would secretly take children from nearby apartments. They were often found unconscious in her home, as if drugged. One night, a resident claimed to see her digging up a grave in a nearby cemetery and carrying something back to her apartment. After that, strange chanting and rituals were heard from her place for days. Then one morning, the apartment complex manager was found brutally murdered. His body was covered in scratch marks, small, sharp marks, like those of a child. The residents had finally forced the old woman out. When they entered her apartment, they found horrifying things. Dark ritual items. Symbols drawn in blood. And the skeleton of a young boy. People believed she had created a raw entity, a dark spirit bound using the soul of a buried child. After that incident, the apartment remained vacant for a long time. Until Emily moved in. Terrified, Emily returned to her apartment and searched online about such rituals. She learned that when a child dies at a very young age, sometimes their body is buried instead of cremated. Dark practitioners dig up these bodies and perform forbidden rituals to bind the child's soul into a violent entity, forcing it to obey their commands. As Emily read this, the light suddenly went out. The apartment plunged into darkness. She felt a tight grip around her neck. She couldn't breathe. Gasping, drenched in sweat, she stumbled into the kitchen to get water. The glass slipped from her hands and shattered. When she looked at her reflection in the kitchen window, there were tiny finger marks around her neck, as if a child had tried to strangle her. Suddenly, a loud crying echoed from her bedroom. This time, it was furious. When she entered the room, the sound came from above. She looked up. Two small hands slowly emerged from the top of her closet. Then, a decaying child's face appeared. Its skin was rotting. Its teeth were sharp. Its nails long and black. Emily knew instantly. This was the same child whose soul the old woman had trapped. The elevator wasn't working. As Emily turned back, the child was standing in the living room, slowly moving toward her. She rang her neighbor's doorbell desperately. No one came. Her breath started fading again. She ran outside toward the apartment gate. The security guard saw her condition and assumed an intruder was inside. Before Emily could stop him, he ran upstairs. Moments later, a scream. Something fell from above. It was the guard's body. His neck bore the same tiny handprints. On the balcony above stood the child, blood streaming from its eyes. The entire complex erupted in chaos. At sunrise, a priest was called. He explained that the old woman was gone, but the child's soul was still trapped inside that apartment. A violent, restless entity. Emily left that apartment the same day. The unit was sealed forever. Emily never saw the child again. But even today, the sound of a crying baby fills her with unbearable fear.